everyone, it's Lise here. I'm back today with a card for you, and in today's card I'm going to be showing you how to do the die cut inlay technique, as well as incorporating some pattern paper into your card design. For my card today I'm going to be using some of the newly released products from the October 2020 release from My Favourite Things. To start off, I've taken a piece of white cardstock. This is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I'm placing the Very Merry and Bright Dynamic down on top of that, and I'm going to tape it into place before running it through the die cutting machine. I'm going to remove the tape now, and I will keep the letters from that dynamic in a separate place because I'm going to be using pieces of those later on my card. I've placed the negative die cut panel down onto a card base, and I'm just marking off the top and bottom sections of the "and" word, as that is where I'm going to incorporate my pattern paper into the design. I've selected a horizontal stripe design from the new Christmas Cheer paper pack. I've trimmed that down to size, and then I'm just going to adhere that onto my card base using My Favourite Things On Point Precision Glue. And I'm just testing it here to make sure that all of that section is actually covered behind the word, and then I'm going to trim off the excess from the side. For the die cut inlay part of the card, I've selected Summer Splash, Ripe Raspberry, Cotton Candy, Limelight and some red from my stash cardstocks for this part. I'm just going to run those through the Gemini with the Very Merry and Bright die. I'm adding some strips of double-side tape behind the words of the die cut panel. When I flip this back over, that's going to enable me to adhere those letters back into that die cut frame. Before I go ahead and adhere those letters back into that frame, I'm adding some On Point Precision Glue here just to that middle section and the outside, and I'm now going to place that back down over my card base, and I can start to put those letters back into their relevant sections. I do apologise for my head getting in the way here. I just have to make sure that that is on completely straight, and obviously the pattern paper covers that middle section. So I'm just going to smooth that down, and now I'm going to start popping those letters back in. I always really enjoy this bit. It's like doing a little jigsaw puzzle, and it's made really easy by the fact that I've got double-sided tape behind those openings. And I've chosen these colours of cardstock because they coordinate with the pattern paper, and that really helps to bring the design together. I now want to go ahead and adhere the inner sections of the "and" word. In order to do that, I've taken the letters that I die cut out of the panel earlier, and I'm using them to help me line up those little bits that help complete that word in the middle. And I'm going to do the same too with the two R's of Merry and the B and the R on Bright. I'm just going to make sure that I put the respective white pieces back in, just to make sure that that card is flat all the way down. And you can see I've got lots of letters left over, so it'll be really easy for me to make a few more cards using those die cut letters. Moving on to the colouring part of the card now, I've taken 3 images from the Warm Hugs and Frosty Kisses set. I'm going to stamp those using Memento Tuxedo black ink onto some Nina Solar White £80 cardstock, and I'm using the Misty to make sure that I get a good impression. I'm starting off with trees, and as you can see I've put the numbers up on the screen for you. These are really quite small images, so you could probably use 2 colours. I decided to go ahead and use 3 for them, but they are small and you would get a good blend even with 2 colours. So this is fairly basic Copic colouring. I'm literally just going from dark to light across both of those trees. And again for the penguin, I'm going to put the numbers up on the screen. The nose is really tiny, so it's just a dot of the Y19. And again, the actual penguin image is so small, you only really need a couple of colours. So I've used C7 for the outer edges, and I just use a little bit of C2 just to go under the hat and down the sides of his body. I'm going to finish the colouring off now on the penguin by colouring the scarf and the hat. And I don't do any blending at all on the stripes in the scarf. I literally just use 3 different Copics just to colour those stripes, and I use 2 on his hat. You could have actually probably got away with 1 on the hat, but I decided I'd use 2 just to see if I could give it a bit more dimension. All the Copics that I selected for the colouring coordinate really well with the pattern paper and those die cut letters, and I really think that helps bring the card together. I was just checking here which of my colours to use first. They're actually quite similar, but I went with the BG45 first, and then I filled in that section with BG13 in the middle. I'm placing the coordinating dynamics over the top now. I'm going to run those through the Gemini, and then I'm going to set those aside whilst I work on my sentiment. The sentiment that I've chosen for my card today is "'Tis the season to be jolly," and that is from the Bitty Holiday Wishes stamp set. So I've popped some black cardstock into my MISTI, I've prepped it with an anti-static powder bag, and I'm going to stamp it with Versamark ink and then add some white embossing powder, and I'm going to heat set that. I'm taking one of the dies from Skinny Strips Die-namics. I'm just going to place that over the top, just making sure that I line it up correctly, so apologies for my head again. I'm going to take that down and I'm going to run that through the die cutting machine. I've trimmed the sentiment down slightly and put some foam tape on the back. I'm just using a T-square ruler there just to make sure that that sentiment is on straight. I'm now going to stick my 3 Copic coloured images down onto that panel. So for the larger tree, I've just put some wet adhesive on the back, and I've popped that down so it sits just behind the greeting. For the other 2 images, I've used some foam tape so that they are popped up and they slightly overhang the sentiment, but I think it gives some dimension to what is otherwise a relatively flat card. And of course it wouldn't be Christmas, would it, if I didn't add a little bit of sparkle to the card. So I'm adding some Tonic Nouveau Aqua Shimmer onto the trees, the scarf and the hat. And just because I couldn't resist adding a little bit more bling onto the card, I've taken some clear iridescent jewels. They're from Lucy's Cards, and I'm just going to pop 4 or 5 of them down across the card just to give it a little bit more interest and a little bit more sparkle. And that brings me to the end of my card for today. I really do love the non-traditional colours that I've used in this card, and of course they were all driven by the colours on that pattern paper. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will list the products that I've used in the description below and over on my blog. I do hope that you found the video useful today and that you enjoyed it. If you did, then please consider subscribing to my channel and don't forget to click the thumbs up button. Thank you so much once again for joining me here today, and I'll be back to share another project with you soon.